Hey, I'm bringing down one of my new tracks over here. I'm going to deconstruct it completely. You want to listen? Come on. Hi everyone, I want to welcome you to another episode of Accessed. I'm Justin James, and in today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to break down my latest track. This track is called Gonna Feel. It's a collaboration I did with the great Dan Diamond as a vocalist, and this is a brand new track that's out on Oliver Huntemann's Senso Sounds. So you can scoop that up. You can listen to it on Beatport. You can listen to it on Apple Music. You can listen to it on Spotify or wherever. You can make TikTok videos out of it. You can do whatever you need to do with it, and it's there for you. So yeah, have a look and have a listen and tell me what you think. A little bit of background with Dan Diamond and I. Before I ever knew Dan as a collaborator and as a friend, I was a huge fan of a song by Peace Division called Club Therapy, and Dan was a vocalist on that, and I used to play that track out a bunch, and I just loved it. I loved the kind of the deep, stripped down feel of it, and really influenced me in my music writing. And not that I only make just deep down, stripped down stuff. I also like some a little bit more banging stuff too. But that definitely was a taste maker for me. Yeah, so before I heard that track, and luckily I got to become friends with Dan through a mutual friend, John Aquaviva, and we stayed in touch, and this is like the third or fourth track that we've made together, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm excited for it to be on Senso Sounds. That's one of my favorite labels at the moment. Oliver Huntemann is a legend, and has done a lot of work with some great people, and probably most notably is his work he's done with Dubfire, his collaborations with Dubfire. So yeah, so I want to thank Oliver for digging this too, and we've had some huge support since it came out just a little under a week ago. But I'm going to walk you through this, kind of paint a picture of how I like to make music and how I made this one. So let's get boogie in here, and I'll show you. So one thing I like to do, I like to start Ableton. Obviously I'm using Ableton. Ableton has two views. It has one view here, which is called the session view, and this is more the loop based view and work space of Ableton. And then we have the arrangement view, and this is where your kind of typical start to finish of a song is. And so what I like to do, I like to use the session view as my point, just to my place, just to get what you could say is like the middle of the track, where I have just what I need to kind of start building a song, to kind of my jam place, to kind of get somewhere, and then say, hey, I'm ready to make this into a song. So as you can see, it looks like you only had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are actually the same vocal. 6 elements before I said, hey, let's get on to making this. And actually, it's only the amount of tracks that I use in here isn't that much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And these are groups, so they don't really count. So yeah, 16 different sonic elements, and a couple of them are actually duplicates here and duplicates here, and we'll get into that later. So yeah, this was a loop that I worked with that kind of led me to start building the song. So I'll play it for you really quick.
Music has changed so much, from the days of empty warehouses and basements to stadiums and shit. I've never tried.
And so yeah, so I had that, and I'm like, yeah, let's get this going. You can see in this case, all of the vocals are in there that Dan had sent me, and And then when I brought it into the arrangement view, I kind of chopped it up a whole bunch and brought it into parts. So yeah, so now we'll jump over to the arrangement side of things. Here's the arrangement, and the exact same 16, I think it was, tracks or whatever we said going up or down there. And 16 going up and down there, and yeah, and this is what it looks like. So I have my, you can see I added a whole bunch of stuff, and what I like to do in my tracks is I like to group things and color code them. Maybe it's a little bit of OCD, but the red channels here are my groups, my groupings. So my first grouping is my low bus, and then my second grouping is my high percussion. Then my third one in this case is vocals, and then my fourth one is just effects. So just kind of others, I like to also call it, like things that I just need in there that don't really fit anywhere else. And then I have a strings group, and the strings group, yeah, the strings group is actually part of the effects group, and it's a group within a group. And then down here I have my lead. In this case I called it 303, and we'll get into that. So we'll start with my low bus. So my low bus only has 2 tracks on it right now, and it's the kick drum and a bass line. In this case, the bass line is actually made from toms, and I believe they're toms from the Roland TR8-S. And then the kick drum, I believe, was actually came from Maschine. So here we go. This is what this part sounds like. And there you can hear the kick drum, and then you can hear the bass line kind of working around with it inside there. Get that little loop for you. Alright, it's pretty subby bass line. Those toms are pretty subby. I think that's where they came from. And yeah, so they're playing around with each other there. Yeah, so the kick drum only, kick drum and bass line actually both only have a high pass filter on them. You can see I've kind of carved up this one a little bit, and the kick drum just at 30 hertz right here, a little cut there, and I brought it up a little bit there, and to give it a little bit in the mid range. And yeah, and then I have the tom side chain to the kick drum. So so what that means is every time that the kick drum hits, it kind of punches a little bit of a hole into the bass line, and that allows the bass line to pump a little bit, but more importantly it gives more room for the kick drum to kind of be present. So that's a huge thing for me, and one of the most important things that I've learned in music is how to make sure that kick drum is prominent. Okay, now we're going to go over here to the high percussion. Okay, and you can see I have my hi-hats, snare, ride, and 3 shakers on this one. So I have a lot of kind of high-end noise here to kind of give the track its groove. And then a ride, it's more like of a stomping ride, and the snare is a little bit rhythmic underneath, and then my hats, my hi-hats are kind of on the ends, so you know, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and the kind of the typical hat hi-hat formation. So here's what they sound like together. Alright, now I'm just gonna solo my hats for a sec. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by the 1 and. So so basically the hats are falling in between every kick drum. So creating a little bit of rhythm. This is when I play tracks for little kids. As soon as I put these hats in the middle, they're like, oh, and their heads start grooving a little bit. So, and adults too, not just kids. Yep, so in this case, I'm gonna just gonna solo that again. So I didn't do too much treatment on here. I did a high pass filter, even though there's not too much low end to these hats, but just still any low end information that would be here it's gone, you know, and that's important for me. Again, because the more room we can keep for our kick drum and bass line in this music, the better off we are. And then I have just a little delay running on it. So this is what the hats sound like dry. And a little bit of delay. And one of the things that I like to do with this Echo Boy by Sound Toys is increase the feedback. And if you do it right, that was a little too hot there, but if you do it right, kind of create some weird little kind of snaky type thing. And I like to use that going into breakdowns and stuff like that when I get rid of the hats. And let's see if I did in this case. No, I didn't. I didn't even use it in this case, but on a lot of my tracks I do. Yep, so that's the hats. And then the snare, you can hear the snare is pretty groovy snare. So I think it's hitting on the 2, yeah, it's hitting on the 2 and 4, and then there's a little bit of action in between too. I think this came from Maschine as well, from Native Instruments Maschine. And just have all I have literally on there is a high pass filter. So you can see here the low end information of the snare is cut off, and again that's just still get the punch of the snare, but we're missing the low stuff that leaves room for the kick drum and bass line. All right, so let's head down here. So then we have a bunch of shakers, and these shakers are just shakers. Just there. This one's actually quite quiet. It's in the start. It almost gives it like a scratchy vinyl kind of feel, and I liked it, so I kind of kept it in there. And a little bit of delay on there. And then I have this one, and this is here solely to add a little bit of extra movement in the middle of the track. And you can hear, if we bring it over to here, actually use it as like a little build out of the break. I just used a filter on that to create that. And if we were to take all this, and let's go from this this breakdown, and we're just gonna solo the low bus, the high percussion, and yeah, and we'll have a listen to what it sounds like kind of in here. Create something super groovy, and if you hear the track, I'll play it for you in a second. Actually, I'll play it back in 1 second from right here. Kind of give you an idea of how the middle of the track sounds. All right, yeah, and then you have the build up on the other side of that. Now we're going to get down to the vocals, and obviously in this case, and I'm not afraid to admit it, but whenever Dan's vocals are involved, that kind of becomes the big part of the big part of the track. So in this case, here's his vocals, and again, I love them. So let's just go from here.
Music has changed so much, you know, from the days of empty warehouses and basements to stadiums and shit.
All right, so what I did with these vocals, Dan actually recorded these. He was in Florida, still is in Florida, and I'm in Canada. So we don't get much studio time together, so we bounce things back and forth. He records in his studio and then ships them over to me, and I'll send him little grooves, and so he gets an idea with it one way or another, and then we end up where we're at. So the vocals, you can see, I'll explain why the vocals are in a group. Why there's two vocals here, but all my vocals I love to use this plugin here. It's the CLA vocal. You can see here CLA vocals plugin, and it's a kind of all-in-one. It could add some bass to the vocals, some treble. some compression, reverb, delay, and pitch. And you can dial this into wherever you want to kind of make your vocals sit nice together. And it's got basically it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different plugins in one. And I actually use this not only on vocals, I'll use actually the vocal one on leads and whatnot too. I'm not sure if I used it on the 303. No, I didn't. So, but I love this plugin, and I'd recommend it to anybody. And I have a few other things on here, but the big things that I want to show you was kind of there's the reason why there's 2 versions of his voice. And if you can see over here, what I did is this one, the bottom vocal actually comes 15 milliseconds, it's delayed 15 milliseconds before the top one. So they're layered vocals, but off a little bit, they're kind of offset. And so it's almost like he's singing back up to himself, but you can hear it's kind of a spacey, kind of devilish backup. So here's the vocal together.
Music has changed so much, you know.
And then here's just the
from
top
the days
vocal.
Of empty warehouses and basements,
and then the bottom vocal
to stadiums and shit.
I've never tried to be different. It just ain't natural.
And I pitched that down a great deal using another Sound Toys plugin called the Little Alter Boy, and I just kind of messed around with it and pitched it down a little bit to create something kind of demonic, but together it creates almost like a backing vocal. And like I said, with this delay a little bit before, it kind of nudges that one forward. And I like to do that when I layer things. So yeah. So, and then the vocal ends up something like this. And I wanted to go to the middle to show you kind of, I'll show you everything together because, yeah, just from here to give you kind of an idea, and then we'll go down the rest of the way. So, so here we go.
Back when I see our culture almost getting destroyed by these people jumping on top of the booth and dancing like a stripper and wearing some type of fucking Halloween mask. Halloween mask. Halloween mask. Halloween mask. Halloween mask. Halloween mask. Halloween I guess I'm just getting disappointed.
And I wanted to show you kind of on the way up there. I'm gonna stop this delay. On the way up there, how we use this how I use this this one shaker to add a little bit of kind of tension and build up, you know, coming out of that break. I didn't want this to be like a super epic build up break because the track didn't seem to fit that, but something just to kind of build some energy and then kind of at this whatever you want to call it, drop or whatever. And then we have a couple of effects here, and there's not too much to do with these. This one here, as you can see, actually I used just Dan's vocal. I used one of his breaths. So basically every time there's like a little bit of a break, I use that to kind of create like a little bit of a build up, like a transitional type piece. That's something I like to use a lot in tracks. And in that case, it was just its breath because I thought it sounded kind of cool. And then this one, like I said earlier, with a little kind of clicky thing, just to give it like almost like a little bit of a vinyl feel underneath it, but a little bit more rhythmic. I used some of his voice here too. Actually, literally all I used was the feedback from his mic, just a little bit of the noise at the bottom of the mic, in order to create some a little bit of stuff underneath the track. and a little bit of high sizzle. I don't know if it stands out or not, but if it's even noticeable, but it's there. Yeah. So go down here, I have the strings. I think I used my Juno 106 for these. And the reason why there's two here is the exact same thing as why there's two vocals here. So I played in the just the pad of these strings. Am I on the right one here? We'll get to strings. I played in the pad of the strings, and you can hear again it's like a little bit of a build up. So it's a little bit of a build and release kind of coming out of this part, and again the same in this part here, and creates like a nice little reverby tail after. So there's this like long reverb. Yeah, it's got to be more of a reverb than a delay. Yeah, it's actually both. This awesome plugin, Ableton plugin, the Ableton Echo, kind of has an awesome delay engine, as well as you can add reverb. So I think that's actually the reverb coming from there, but probably mixed with the delay as well. So in this case, I have two parts. I have the higher pitch strings, and then I just made them a little bit thicker with the lower strings. So together they sound like very similar to what I did with the vocals. And I also, just as I did above, I sidechained the strings to the kick drum. So it creates a little bit of pumping element with the strings. So this is sidechained to the kick drum. And you can kind of hear it wow, wow, wow. And as I take this off, it's going to be more of a steady string. Whereas the side chain actually creates a little bit of a pumping element. And again, it's super subtle, you know, and but in the mix, it's something that you can hear. And again, as Dan says, more importantly, feel, right? And that's what you're gonna feel. That's literally the last vocal of the track, and what you're gonna feel. So more importantly, what you're gonna feel.
But most importantly, what you're gonna feel. What you're gonna feel. What you're gonna feel. What you're gonna feel. What you're gonna feel.
Right. So yeah. So this music is it's a very physical music, right? Hearing is physical at that. But yeah, it's kind of prophetic that Dan wrote that in there. And then the last two elements that I have here are stem from my 303, the Acidlabs Bassline. And I sequenced both of these in different ways. And then what I did was I basically rode them out using their cutoff, their filter, the resonance, the envelope, and decay. And I basically, what I did was I wrote the whole track with an idea for what I wanted to do with the lead. Actually, I just ran it on a loop. And then what I did is, upon recording, I pressed record and then played out all of these elements, and then actually played in the 303 like I wanted it to be played in. And a little bit kind of like jamming. So did a bunch of jamming through there, kind of turning some knobs and building up at certain times and pulling back. And the result was something like this. And I know for sure, I think I've flattened it since, and I'll teach you guys about freezing and flattening one day. But at one point I had this Black Hole, a pretty amazing reverb plugin sitting on top, and I know they're sitting on top. It was sitting on top of both of these, and yeah, so that's what I did, because I know, maybe not, maybe I just sent it all to this reverb here. Let's see. So this is what this sounds like. You can hear it opening up here. Again, this is creating some tension throughout the track in this breakdown that I wanted to build up without it being a super big build up. And then I'm kind of pulling it down a bit. And up. Oh. And then it drops right there. So I kind of, in this case, I kind of built it up a little bit more, then I brought it down, and then it kind of drops in a little bit anticlimactic, I think, in a good way, I hope. And so down here, what I did here is I took the 303 in a separate instance and kind of programmed it a little bit differently. In this case, I used my Squarp Pyramid, and I used what's called the Euclidean sequencer, and that's a whole other thing that we'll get into one day. But basically what happened, instead of this loop of this pluck being hit at every 15 or every 16th note, it went on every 15th note. So obviously when you loop that, the loop comes back a little bit different. And this leads to a whole kind of approach that I'm really diving into now called polyrhythms. And kind of, if you take all these different polyrhythms and on different timings, not necessarily different time signature, but basically when they loop around, they create this super interesting rhythm that's super hypnotic, and you don't know kind of where it starts or where it ends anymore. You know, a lot of times with our music, you can really count out the 1, 2, 3, 4s, you know, or count out the bars. And a really interesting thing with this Euclidean sequencing and polyrhythmic kind of approach, you get lost in it. So here is this pluck. Again, this comes from the Acidlabs Bassline 303 clone 2. And again, this is one of those devices that you know, it's a real close friend of mine here who's kind of an acid expert, says he can't tell it. I think he's got 2 or 3 303s, and he says he can't tell the difference between this one and an actual 303, which, you know, it's pretty cool. So here it is. And again, yeah, all they did was send everything to this reverb here. I didn't put anything on top, and it's just one of Ableton's bass reverb patches, I think. And I love the kind of high-end elements of a 303. I love that more than the kind of grindy, grimy low end of it. I love how plucky you can get. I love so much of the Plastic Man stuff that has this in there, and that was kind of, in a way, something I was going for here. So together, you know, it sounds a little bit like this. And then it loops around again, and that's basically the track from kind of start to finish. I know I have a bunch in here that bunch of return tracks and stuff that are doing some work too, but we'll save that for next time. Hopefully, before I play this out, hopefully you enjoyed this, and don't be afraid to like and subscribe. I got a lot more coming your way. Access has like a whole bunch of different kind of themes, and obviously this is our track breakdown side of things. If you go back, I'll leave a link up top, and you can have a look at the opening show that I did. And yeah, so if you have any questions, make sure you leave some questions and comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can be notified, and listen to this online. So check it out, and yeah, what I'll do is I'll run it through here, and then I'll make sure to see you guys really soon. All right, thanks for listening. Here we go. No, not like that. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and...
I mean, nowadays, it's just so saturated. I sometimes want to get away from it all. Something always pulls me back in, and I always get back to the basics. I'm not always perfect, and I definitely made some mistakes, but I always seem to come back when I see our culture almost getting destroyed by these people jumping on top of the booths and dancing like a stripper and wearing some type of fucking Halloween mask. 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 I guess I'm just getting disillusioned, you know. I'm just a dude that likes house music. Small little changes that make up a vibe, you dig?
And there you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and leave some comments, and ring that bell. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again real soon.